In a world drowning in superficial pleasantries and performative politeness, we've lost sight of what it truly means to connect with others authentically. The childhood instruction to be nice has evolved into something far more sinister than our parents ever intended, a prison of false agreeableness that's suffocating genuine human connection. Picture this: you're 5 years old, reaching for your sibling's toy with the selfish determination only children possess. Suddenly, that familiar parental voice cuts through your desire, be nice. At that moment, you don't understand the philosophical implications of kindness versus niceness. You simply learn that your wants, your authentic impulses, are somehow problematic. This early programming doesn't stop at childhood. It follows us through every stage of development, reinforced by teachers who reward compliance, religious leaders who preach endless forgiveness, and a media landscape that celebrates people pleasers while demonizing anyone who dares to set boundaries. But what happens when an entire generation grows up believing that being nice means erasing yourself for others' comfort? Today's definition of niceness has mutated into something psychologically destructive. It's become an almost pathological aversion to causing any form of discomfort to others, even when that discomfort might lead to growth, clarity, or necessary change. This modern niceness manifests as agreeing with everyone, regardless of your actual opinions, saying yes to every request, invitation or opportunity, suppressing your needs and desires to accommodate others, avoiding difficult conversations that could improve relationships, remaining in toxic situations to avoid being mean. The irony: this behavior, while appearing altruistic, is actually profoundly selfish. But when you constantly agree with others, you're not demonstrating care for their thoughts or feelings. Instead, you're prioritizing your own need to be liked above everything else, including their need for honest feedback and authentic connection. Consider Sarah, who nods enthusiastically when her friend discusses a business venture that's clearly doomed to fail. Sarah thinks she's being supportive, but she's actually depriving her friend of valuable perspective, protecting her own image as the supportive friend, setting up a dynamic where her friend makes decisions in an echo chamber, creating resentment within herself as she watches preventable disasters unfold. This isn't kindness, it's cowardice, dressed up as virtue. The chronic people pleaser isn't truly present in their relationships. They're constantly performing, calculating how to respond in ways that will earn approval, rather than contributing authentically to the interaction. Think about your last conversation with someone you suspected was just telling you what you wanted to hear. How did it feel? Probably hollow, unsatisfying, maybe even slightly insulting to your intelligence. That's because genuine connection requires the risk of disagreement, the possibility of conflict, and the courage to be disliked. When someone agrees with everything you say, they're essentially telling you, I don't respect you enough to engage with your ideas honestly. I care more about managing your opinion of me than helping you think things through. This pattern of false niceness is unsustainable. Eventually the nice person reaches their breaking point. Years of suppressed frustration, unmet needs, and inauthentic relationships create a powder keg of resentment. The explosion, when it comes, is often disproportionate to the triggering event. The perpetually agreeable person suddenly becomes unreasonably angry over something minor, leaving everyone confused and hurt. Or they simply disappear, ending relationships without explanation, leaving others to wonder what they did wrong. Neither outcome serves anyone well. True kindness, as opposed to performative niceness, requires courage. It demands that you speak honestly, even when it's uncomfortable. When your colleague presents a flawed strategy, kindness means offering constructive criticism, not nodding along while secretly hoping someone else will point out the problems. Set boundaries, even when it disappoints others. Kindness means saying no to commitments that would overextend you, rather than saying yes and delivering subpar results due to exhaustion and resentment. Have difficult conversations, even when they create tension. Kindness means telling your partner when something they're doing bothers you, rather than letting resentment build until it poisons the relationship. End relationships that no longer serve anyone. Sometimes, kindness means recognizing when a friendship or romantic relationship has run its course and having the courage to let it go gracefully. Here's what seems counterintuitive. Authentic kindness often feels less nice in the moment, but creates better outcomes for everyone involved. When Marcus told his business partner that their marketing approach wasn't working, it created an uncomfortable afternoon. But it saved them months of wasted effort and thousands of dollars in ineffective advertising. That moment of discomfort prevented much greater pain down the road. When Elena finally told her friend that constantly arriving 2 hours late to plans was disrespectful, it sparked an argument, but it also led to an honest conversation about expectations and ultimately strengthened their friendship by eliminating a recurring source of tension. When David declined his cousin's wedding invitation because he couldn't afford the travel expenses, it created temporary disappointment. But it prevented him from going into debt and potentially resenting the couple for what he would have perceived as their expensive demands on his finances. The biggest obstacle to authentic kindness is the terror of being disliked. Our brains are wired to seek social acceptance because, evolutionarily speaking, rejection from the group meant death. But in modern society, this ancient programming often works against us. The truth is, you cannot be authentic and universally liked. These goals are mutually exclusive. When you start practicing authentic kindness, some people will be uncomfortable. They may have grown accustomed to your people-pleasing and feel destabilized when you begin setting boundaries and expressing genuine opinions. This discomfort is not your responsibility to manage. The people who truly care about you will appreciate your honesty, even when it's challenging to hear. They'll respect your boundaries, even when those boundaries inconvenience them. And they'll value your authentic presence more than your performative agreeableness. When you commit to authentic kindness instead of performative niceness, the effects extend far beyond your immediate relationships. You save time and energy that would otherwise be wasted on commitments you never wanted to make, and relationships that drain rather than nourish you. You create space for genuine connections with people who appreciate your authentic self rather than your people-pleasing performance. You model healthy behavior for others who may also be trapped in patterns of inauthentic niceness. You contribute to more honest, productive environments in your workplace, social circles, and community. You develop genuine self-respect that comes from living in alignment with your values rather than constantly abandoning them for others' approval. In our hyperconnected world, the pressure to be nice has intensified exponentially. Social media platforms reward conformity and punish dissent. The algorithmic need for likes, shares, and positive engagement has created digital spaces where authentic expression feels increasingly risky. We find ourselves trapped in endless scrolling sessions, consuming curated versions of other people's lives, while our own authentic experiences feel inadequate by comparison. This digital voyeurism, much like the character Kennedy's obsession with swapping lives through his app, creates a strange form of self-abandonment where we become more familiar with others' projected realities than with our own inner landscape. The solution isn't to abandon technology entirely, but to approach it with the same principles of authentic kindness we apply to our offline relationships. This means sharing honestly about both struggles and successes, engaging genuinely rather than performatively, setting boundaries around digital consumption, remembering that online personas are curated performances, not complete realities. Ironically, our attempts to connect with everyone often leave us feeling profoundly isolated. When we constantly perform niceness rather than expressing authenticity, we create relationships built on false premises. Others may like our performance, but they don't know us, and we, having hidden our true selves, feel unseen and misunderstood. This creates a peculiar form of loneliness, being surrounded by people who approve of a version of you that doesn't actually exist. The path out of this isolation requires the courage to risk disapproval in service of genuine connection. It means showing up as you actually are, not as you think others want you to be. Start small. You don't need to revolutionize every relationship overnight. Begin by expressing one genuine opinion per day, even if it's just saying you prefer a different restaurant than the one suggested. Practice saying no, without elaborate justifications. "That doesn't work for me" is a complete sentence. You don't need to provide a dissertation defending your boundaries. Ask yourself, what would I do if I weren't afraid of being disliked? Often, the answer reveals the authentic, kind action that your fear has been preventing. Distinguish between being kind and being convenient. Kindness sometimes inconveniences others in service of greater good. convenience prioritizes immediate comfort over long-term benefit. Remember that other people's reactions to your authenticity reveal information about them, not you. Someone who becomes angry when you set reasonable boundaries is telling you something important about their character and expectations. Building relationships based on authentic kindness rather than performative niceness is a long-term strategy. In the short term, you may experience some people distancing themselves from you. Temporary discomfort, as you learn new ways of interacting, anxiety about whether you're doing it right, guilt about prioritizing your own needs. But over time, you'll discover deeper, more satisfying relationships with people who appreciate your authenticity, increased self-respect, and confidence, more energy for the people and activities that truly matter to you, a clearer sense of your own values and identity, professional opportunities that align with your actual interests and skills. Perhaps the most radical act in our people-pleasing culture is developing the capacity to disappoint others when necessary. This doesn't mean becoming callous or cruel. It means recognizing that temporary disappointment is often the price of long-term kindness. When you disappoint someone by being honest about your limitations, preferences, or disagreements, you're offering them something valuable, the opportunity to know and relate to the real you, rather than a performance designed to manage their emotions. The principles of authentic kindness extend beyond personal relationships to create healthier communities, workplaces, and societies. When we collectively abandon the pressure to be universally agreeable, we create space for productive conflict that leads to better solutions rather than comfortable stagnation, diverse perspectives that strengthen decision-making rather than groupthink that leads to poor outcomes, clear expectations that prevent misunderstandings and resentment, genuine support that addresses real needs rather than surface-level pleasantries. Authentic kindness isn't a destination, it's a daily practice that requires ongoing attention and courage. Some days, you'll fall back into old patterns of people-pleasing. Some interactions will feel messy or incomplete. Some relationships will end, and others will deepen in ways you never expected. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress toward more honest, generous, and ultimately, more loving ways of being with others. It's the recognition that true kindness sometimes requires us to risk being disliked in service of everyone's long-term well-being. In a world that profits from our insecurities and rewards our conformity, choosing authentic kindness is a revolutionary act. It's a commitment to seeing others clearly enough to tell them the truth, and trusting them enough to handle that truth with wisdom and grace. The millions of little threads that connect us to others, the countless micro-interactions that make up our relationships, are stronger when they're woven from authenticity rather than performance. When we stop trying to be everything to everyone, we finally become something real to someone. And in that reality, in that willingness to be known, rather than just liked, we find the connection we've been seeking all along.